Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? Well, looks like I'm gonna have another video about old school D&D, about OSR games, which is kind of funny because I haven't been playing those games an awful lot lately. Ever since my Lamentations in Prussia game went on hiatus, I really haven't been playing any of them. I think maybe might have played a one-shot or two, but fingers crossed, we are going to get back to that game relatively soon. But I've been playing a bunch of games, different games that I've really been enjoying. However, these games, they inhabit a real sentimental spot in my heart, and I can't imagine going back to them again and again for some enjoyment. Anyhow, I made this video about which old school game is for you, and it was based on a question somebody had asked, and so somebody else asked another question. So it's Kevin Pantoja. It's Pantoja. So if I'm butchering your name, Kevin, I'm sorry. I did the best I could. Asked this great question: from these games, what's your favorite skill system, and could you explain why? Well, this is a conundrum because those original TSR D&D games that I talked about, they don't have skill systems. The only skill system they have in those games is the thief skill system. So I'll talk about that first, but we're going to get to what my favorite skill systems are to use with these games anyway. And this is a video that's going to be tinged with preference and bias. This does not mean that my choice is the right one. It just means this is what I prefer, and I'll tell you why. For the thief skill systems in these various old school games, the one that I like to use the best, if I'm going to use something that's close to rules as written, but it's not really, is to use this very popular house rule where you use the hear noise chance for everything. And the hear noise chance in a lot of the basic games, I believe like BX, I think OD&D had it as well, is a blank in 6 chance, X in 6 chance. The higher the level of thief, the more chance they have. It goes from 1 in 6 to like 5 in 6 or whatever it is. Maybe it starts at 2 and 6, I forget. But the idea is you just use that for everything, no matter what kind of little thiefly skill they like to do. That's my absolute favorite if I'm going to use those games with a rule that's written in there and just kind of knock something else out. I do like the percentage thief skills. The thief skills in Menser Basic, which would be BE, CMI, and the Rule Cyclopedia, they're terrible because they start out way too low. And everybody knows this. That's part of that community. And I think Frank has even said, yeah, I really kind of nerfed the thief there. Anyhow, we're not going to talk about that. So what do these games actually include that's close to skill systems, and which ones do I like? This game right here has probably my favorite attribute check, because a lot of what happens in these games is you do attribute checks. You're not really doing skill tests. You're actually looking at the ability scores these characters have. And BX has a rule way in the back, I think it might be on page 60, about it's an optional rule for ability checks where you roll a d20. If you roll the character's ability score or less, they succeed at this. And you just make the call. Is this dexterity-based or strength-based or intelligence-based or, blah, 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 all the way down the line. That will give you a fairly good representation. You can also roll, XD6 against the same thing, like 3D6 if it's a standard task, 4D6 if it's really hard, 2D6 if it's pretty easy, 5D6 if it's impossible. Once again, you try to roll equal to or under their ability score. That's about my favorite way to check, a test of something. And you can always modify it based on level or situation and all that kind of junk. Honorable mention, another great way that another game handles it. This is a retro clone. This is not one of the original TSR games, but I really do like what they did in Astonishing Swordsman and Sorcerers of Hyperborea. This giant tome, a game which I am going to hopefully be playing this year. I already have some people interested in it. It's huge. As Jeff Delaney put this great system in there where it's tied to the ability scores. So once again, this is a test of an ability. This is not really a skill check. And it's an X in 6 chance. And the higher your ability score is, the greater in 6 chance you have. You roll one of these little bad boys and you find out whether you succeed or fail. It also has something called extraordinary feats of all these various abilities, and it's a very small percentage chance, and it's every single score you go up, you get a little higher percentage chance to perform this incredible feat of intelligence or strength or dexterity. And it really kind of harkens back to the old almost impossible task in first edition D&D. So I dig it. Anyhow, but that's really just ability score checks. That has nothing to do with skill. What about skill? There's something that the games kind of imply. It's said in a few places in the text. There's a lot people talk about it, but it's karma. What the hell is karma? They don't use the word karma. But one of the things you can find out on the interwebs is that there are 3 different ways that we generally handle, or games handle, task resolution. It's drama, fortune, and karma. I'm not really going to talk about drama here, but there's codified ways you can do that in some games. There's fortune, which these bad boys, roll for your fate. Did you succeed or fail? Looks like I failed in this particular case. Or use karma. Well, what the heck is karma? Karma is comparing the value on your character sheet to the task, to the difficulty. And so you look down, and I've talked about this a billion times, where you look down and say, hey, you're trying to go across this little skinny plank, and you have a dexterity of 16, you make it. You don't have to roll dice. Your character's just that good. The character with a 9 dexterity, well, okay, he's probably not going to make it, or maybe I'll let you roll dice and give it a Hail Mary shot. You know, and that handles a lot of cases. Now, once again, I just made an ability score example, but you can do that with the other skills the character has. Where do they get these darn skills? Well, something like first edition D&D, they have these, you know, optional tables in there for like, what's your secondary profession? What are your secondary skills? What was your character before they were an adventurer? And, you know, it could be, you know, farmer, or, you know, whatever the heck they have in their, you know, armor, etc. All the, you know, various professions. You can make something else up. The idea is that you come to the table with a character concept. Who is this person besides just being a warrior or a wizard or, you know, a cleric of some god or some, you know, thief? You know, who the heck are they? And this is something that is like, you know, the character profession, the character concept you bring to the table. This is part of the culture of play. And this is part of a culture of play that I like, where we sit there and talk, well, who is this guy? And then there's times when the game master can say, okay, well, Fred, you know, Fred was a farmer, so we get to this area where he might need to know something about crops or something about, you know, God knows what farmers know about, but you get the idea. Or you're a woodsman. You might know things and have skills that the other guy might not have. Maybe Fred, who is a farmer, knows all about horses and can probably handle them and calm them down a lot better than the next guy in the party. You know, everybody can ride a horse. I'll get to that in a second. But there are these assumed skills that the characters have. I like that in these games. And once again, these games are relatively freeform. There's not a rule for everything, so there's moments where you are essentially using karma. You are coming to the table with a character concept. All right, that's one of the ways that you know, I really like to do that. You don't always have to roll. Getting back to another Frank Menser thing, because I was about to mention this. I said, hold on, we're going to talk about this. I believe I said that. If I didn't, well, here we are. I've heard Frank say on several occasions the idea that, you know, a third level fighter ought to be able to do blank, whatever these things are. You know, a fifth level wizard ought to know these things about alchemy and these things about arcane knowledge and lore and whatever. The idea, once again, this is karma. This is the idea that you have this concept in your head. Who is this person? How skilled are they at what they do? They have these other skills. And this is something, once again, it's culture play. It's a conversation you have at the table. I find that it works particularly well in these games. They may need to roll dice still, although a lot of times they won't have to. But you know, your wizard that's, you know, 5th level, that should know all the stuff about demons and devils and potions and you know, herbology and all this sort of stuff. Well, maybe he has a 5 in 6 chance of getting something right, whereas the average guy has a 1 in 6 chance. He's just that more skilled. All right, but let's talk about like actual skill system that exists in the game, which is my favorite. Well, once again, it's in a retro clone. It's not in one of the original games because they didn't have skill systems. This bad boy. Love the specialist skill system in this game. One of the neat things you know, James did in this game was there aren't thieves, there aren't rogues, there aren't people that are supposed to be that guy. You can be. The idea that the characters are called specialists, and they get to choose, you know, where they put their skill points in. The basic idea, if you don't know, is everybody, you know, has a 1 in 6 chance to do whatever, whether it's stealth or whether it's picking pockets or whether it's climbing up walls, and there's blank spots on the character sheet. You know, I have a guy that has mercantile skills, you know, in our Lamentations of Prussia game, which is great. But, you know, we've had people put down alchemy or, you know, history, all this sort of stuff. It's an open spot. And you can make them the person that's really good at that. Then they get to invest pips in this. So while everybody else has just a 1 in 6 chance to know something about the lore, the history of this particular area or whatnot, maybe this guy has invested 4 pips in there, and so he's got a 5 in 6 chance now of knowing this stuff. I like that skill system quite a bit. The downside of the skill system is it doesn't give it to anybody else but the specialist. So I prefer, and I've made a video or two about this, and I've used this in games where I was a player and as a GM, where you actually expand the skill system just a little bit. I like to use a D12 to make it a little bit more granular, although you can still use a D6 if you'd like to, and give the other characters, like, you know, some D12 pips every once in a while to increase their skill level in something, so they can decide, you know, even as a fighter or a wizard or whatever it happens to be, that maybe I want to be really good at bushcraft or lore or whatever it happens to be, and whatever skill you want to make up. I like that skill system an awful lot. It's funny, this tangential, I've been playing a lot of skill-based games. I'm enjoying the heck out of Ubiquity. And this is not a skill-based game. D&D is not. However, inserting some kind of little bit of stuff in there, to me, helps flesh out the characters a little bit. And finally, this, once again, video full of bias and preference. I love something that I never heard anybody say this, but I heard Tim Kask say this in one of his Curmudgeon in the Cellar videos. If you haven't watched his channel, go ahead and watch that channel. Good stuff. I always enjoy listening to Tim. And a lot of, especially because he's one of the guys that was there. Like he knows what actually was going on at the time. Talked about the idea of the guy that has a knack for it. And where's that come from? And he said, well, okay, well, a lot of times you are rolling just this D6, Menser said all the time, you can play most of the game with a D6. Okay, roll D6, try for low. Maybe you have 1 in 6 chance, a 2 in 6 chance, a 3 in 6 chance, depending on what the task is, all that sort of stuff. The first time that you're encountered with something, you encounter something, maybe you have to do something particularly acrobatic, or maybe you have to calm this horse down, or maybe you have to, talk your way past these guards. Whatever it happens to be, you roll dice and you succeed. Now your character is determined to have a knack for it. They have a better chance than the other people. Maybe from that point on, they can use karma and simply don't have to roll for a lot of these situations. Or, the next time you have to, like, say, calm some horse down, everybody else has a 1 in 6 chance. Well, maybe Fred has a 3 or 4 in 6 chance because Fred has a knack for it. How did you discover that? You discover that in play the first time he tried to do something. I really like that. I have not used that yet. That is something that I'm dying to start using next time I run an OSR game. So, yeah, longer video than I want to make, but it's me. But those are my personal favorite skill systems that are kind of in, but not really in, these old school D&D games and the retro clones. There are a lot of other skill systems got inserted into a lot of other retro clones. I do have a video talking about that. Most of them I find interesting, but they're not my favorite. Absolutely attribute checks. Love the BX. Roll your ability score under. Love the stuff that Jeff Talanian put in this game. Love using karma. Love using the idea of the character concept. Who is this person? And I really enjoy the really dead simple, roll D6 or, in my case, a D12 to find out whether you succeed or fail. And you can assign, where's this character good at this particular thing? Anyhow, that's it, and I hope I answered your question. Have a good one.